It's a strange thing about life. The very comfort we chase often becomes the quiet thief of our dreams. I've always believed that. The mind is like fertile soil. It grows whatever seed you plant. Most people sow seeds of doubt, fear, and limitation, and then wonder why their harvest is so small. But the wealthy, they sow awareness, courage, and discipline. They plant understanding where others plant excuses, and as sure as the seasons change, they reap what they've prepared for. You see, financial freedom doesn't start with numbers, dollars, or bank accounts. It starts here in the mind. The wealthiest people I've met over the years all had one thing in common before they ever had money. They were free inside. Free from fear, free from excuses, free from those quiet little voices that say, you can't, or you're not ready, or it's too risky. I remember a time early in my life when I was broke, working odd jobs, trying to figure it all out. I thought the reason I didn't have money was because I wasn't earning enough. But the truth was I was trapped by my thinking. I was chained by my own doubts, my own excuses. I'd say things like, the economy's bad, or people like me don't get rich, or it's not the right time. And guess what? Every time I said those words, I handed away my freedom. I handed away my potential. Because your life will always move in the direction of your strongest thoughts. If your strongest thoughts are fear, limitation, or hesitation, your life stays small. But if your strongest thoughts are belief, growth, and courage, your life begins to expand. The wealthy liberate their thinking long before they liberate their bank accounts. They learn to challenge excuses. They question fear. They replace limitations with possibilities. And here's what I realized. Once you own your thinking, you start owning your actions. You stop waiting for perfect conditions, and you start building. You stop hoping for luck, and you start creating discipline. You stop fearing failure, and you start learning from it. That's how internal freedom translates to external results. When I finally caught on to this, everything changed. I started small, reading, journaling, rewriting those limiting beliefs. I built new habits, surrounded myself with people who stretched my thinking, who reminded me that my future wasn't determined by my past. And slowly but surely, my bank account started to catch up to my mindset. That's the order of things. You free your mind first, then your finances follow. But if you stay trapped mentally, no amount of money will ever feel like freedom. So the first real investment, it's not stocks, it's not real estate, it's not business. The first investment is in liberating your thinking, because the wealth you can hold in your hands will never exceed the wealth you hold in your mind. It's easy to get caught up in the noise, everyone chasing money, everyone wanting the prize, but so few willing to understand the process. Let me tell you what I've learned from experience, and what every wealthy person I've studied understands deep down. Wealth isn't an accident. It's a formula. A simple one, but not always easy. You want to know the wealth formula? It comes down to three things. Solve problems, serve people, and stay disciplined. That's it. You see, most people ask the wrong question. They walk through life asking, what's in it for me? And when you lead with that mindset, life stays small. The wealthy, they flip the question. They ask, how can I serve? What problems can I solve? That shift changes everything, because the world will always reward the person who solves meaningful problems for others. Look around. Every great fortune was built by solving a problem. Whether it was transportation, communication, health, or convenience, those who built empires didn't chase money, they chased solutions. And the money followed. But here's the piece. Most people miss serving others and solving problems isn't just about ideas, it requires discipline. Because success doesn't show up after one good day of effort. Wealth flows to those who stay consistent, who show up every day, even when it's hard, even when motivation is low. I remember when I first started building my life, I wasn't the smartest, I wasn't the most talented, but I committed to serving people. I asked, how can I help someone else improve their life today? And I stayed disciplined about it. I read the books, developed the skills, made the calls, faced rejection, refined my approach day in and day out. Most people underestimate how ordinary the path to wealth looks. It's not fireworks and headlines. It's quiet discipline in solving problems and serving people consistently. You see, contribution is the currency of true riches. Money flows where value grows, and value grows where problems are solved. So if you want to multiply your income, stop asking, how do I get rich? Start asking, whose life can I make better? What need can I meet? What pain can I ease? The wealth formula isn't locked away. It's hidden in plain sight. Serve people, solve problems, stay disciplined. And when you master that, money has no choice but to follow. I've always believed one of the greatest distinctions between those who stay stuck and those who rise to wealth is how they interpret failure. You see, for most people, failure feels final, a dead end, a reason to stop, a verdict on their ability. But those who build wealth, who create something lasting, they think differently. They treat failure not as final, but as feedback, the most expensive, most valuable tuition life offers. I can tell you from my own journey, I paid that tuition more than once. I remember my first business venture that completely fell apart. I lost money, I lost confidence, and I could have easily packed it in and joined the ranks of those who say, see, it doesn't work. But something told me to stay with it, to extract the lesson, to ask, what did this failure come to teach me? And let me tell you, that mindset shift changed everything. The wealthy expect failure, not because they're pessimists, but because they understand growth is messy. Building wealth is like sculpting stone. Every strike that doesn't hit perfectly shapes the masterpiece. They look at setbacks and ask, what system needs improving? What skill needs sharpening? What mistake won't I repeat next time? Failure is feedback wrapped in discomfort. But most never unwrap it. They sit in disappointment, they get emotional, they blame circumstances. Meanwhile, the wealthy unwrap that discomfort and pull out insights. They know every financial loss contains a lesson in strategy. Every rejected deal contains a lesson in preparation. Every wrong investment contains a lesson in patience or due diligence. The first time I lost money on an investment, I was embarrassed. But I realized feeling bad wasn't going to fix it. So I sat down, reviewed every decision I made, every red flag I ignored, and every shortcut I took. That process of reflection turned failure into wisdom. And the next opportunity? I was sharper, more prepared and profitable. Remember, the wealthy didn't arrive at success by avoiding mistakes. They got there by refusing to waste them. So, if you failed, good. Welcome to the club. But don't stay there. Extract the lesson, refine your approach, and get back in the game, because the only real failure is quitting. I've always believed that one of the great secrets of wealth is respect, not just respect for people, but respect for resources. And money, my friends, is one of the most sensitive resources you will ever encounter. It refuses to stay where it's disrespected. It quietly exits the pockets, the businesses, and the lives of those who mishandle it. You can't multiply what you don't respect. Early in my career, I learned this lesson the hard way. I was ambitious, full of energy, chasing success. But I wasn't disciplined with my money. I didn't track every dollar. I didn't honor every expense. I thought income alone was the secret. But I soon discovered high income with low respect for money is a recipe for staying broke with style. Wealthy people think differently. They don't chase scale first, they build systems. They put respect at the foundation. They know if you can't manage a little, you're not ready for a lot. I've met people earning modest incomes who became wealthy over time because they respected what they had. And I've met people making six figures who stayed broke because they spent money like it was infinite, without thought, without structure, without respect. You see, wealth grows in order. Systems, habits, and awareness create a fertile ground where money can stay, multiply, and serve its purpose. That starts with something as simple as tracking your money. When I began writing down every dollar, where it came from, where it went, my relationship with money changed. Suddenly, the leaks were visible. The waste became unacceptable. The random spending lost its appeal. But respect isn't just about tracking, it's about intentionality. The wealthy treat money like a tool, not a toy. They assign every dollar a job to invest, to save, to grow, to serve before it leaves their hands. They pause before emotional purchases. They question unnecessary expenses, and they focus on building financial systems that work whether they feel motivated or not. If you want to multiply your wealth, start by respecting the small amounts. Master your current resources with discipline, clarity, and structure. Because money is like a guest, treat it well and it stays. Treat it poorly and it leaves, often with friends. It's fascinating how easily people get distracted by noise, promises of overnight success, flashy trends, new fads. But let me share something that separates those who talk about wealth from those who quietly build it. The wealthy respect the boring fundamentals. They don't chase hype. They master the basics and they do it relentlessly. And I'll tell you, simplicity builds empires, not complexity. You see, saving 10% of your income isn't thrilling. Setting aside money for investments month after month feels ordinary. Watching your wealth grow slowly year by year doesn't make headlines. But guess what? That's exactly how real fortunes are built. The wealthy aren't smarter, they're patient. They understand that small, repeated actions like bricks laid one by one eventually build an empire. Most people sabotage their future chasing the next shiny thing. They jump from opportunity to opportunity, hoping to strike gold. But the wealthy, they plant seeds and nurture them daily. They let the boring fundamentals do the heavy lifting over time. It's not glamorous to track your expenses, to build an emergency fund, to reinvest your profits, but those quiet habits create loud results. I remember meeting a man worth millions who still clipped coupons and drove a modest car. His wealth didn't come from gambling on risky ventures. It came from respecting the process, mastering the basics, and repeating them day after day, year after year. So let me tell you this, if you're bored with your financial routine, you're probably doing it right. Simplicity isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Get rich quick seekers fade away, but disciplined builders, they quietly grow richer every day. Because wealth isn't created in the rush. It's earned in the fundamentals, repeated without fail. One of the greatest awakenings I ever had in my life was realizing that time is not just a concept on the clock. Time is capital. It's a resource, just like money, and often even more valuable because once it's spent, it never comes back. The wealthy understand this principle intimately. They don't spend time casually. They invest it with the same scrutiny as they invest their dollars. In my early years, I thought I was busy. I filled my calendar, attended endless meetings, ran from task to task, and at the end of the week, I felt drained but no richer in finances or fulfillment. I was spending time recklessly, the same way some people spend money recklessly, without a plan, without intention, without measuring the return. The wealthy operate differently. They scrutinize every hour with the same care they apply to their bank accounts. They ask themselves, is this conversation, this project, this meeting multiplying my future? If the answer is no, they redirect. Because time compounds wealth, just like money, when it's invested wisely. Every book they read, every skill they develop, every relationship they nurture is an investment that compounds over time. They don't waste hours in mindless distractions. They guard their mornings, they protect their evenings, and they design their days to build capacity, mental, emotional, and financial. I remember making a small shift, carving out 1 hour every day to learn. That hour, repeated daily, transformed my earning potential more than any paycheck ever could. Over time, that compounded into opportunities, clarity, and wealth beyond what I imagined when I was running in circles. But here's the truth. Most people waste hours they can never reclaim, scrolling, reacting, procrastinating, and then wonder why they're stuck. They don't see time as capital. They treat it like spare change, throwing it at the nearest distraction. If you want to join the ranks of the wealthy, start treating your hours like your dollars. Budget them, invest them, track where they go. Spend them building, learning, refining, because time invested wisely today compounds into wealth, freedom, and fulfillment tomorrow. Time, like money, reveals its magic to those who treat it with care. One of the greatest distinctions I ever discovered between those who stay stuck and those who rise to wealth is this. The poor trade time for money. The wealthy trade ideas for money. And I'll tell you, understanding that changed the entire trajectory of my life. Most people, good people, hardworking people, grow up with the belief that the only way to get ahead is to work more hours, to grind, to hustle, to sweat it out day after day. And while there's honor in hard work, make no mistake, working harder alone is not the formula for wealth. You see, time is limited. You can only work so many hours in a day before your body gives out, your mind burns out, or your life becomes nothing but a cycle of exhaustion. But ideas? Ideas have no limits. One good idea, well executed, can earn in a year what no amount of overtime could ever produce. The wealthy understand this at the deepest level. They look for leverage, not labor. They ask, how can I create value that multiplies beyond my time? Early in my life, I was just like anyone else working job to job, trading hours for dollars. But one day I met a mentor who asked me a question I'll never forget. Are you making a living or designing a life? It shook me. I realized I was selling the most precious thing. I had my time for just enough money to get by. But the wealthy, they use their time to develop ideas, businesses, products, systems that work for them even when they're sleeping. Look around, every wealthy person you admire multiplied an idea, an invention, a service, a system, a piece of intellectual property. Their wealth isn't shackled to the hours on a clock. It's tethered to the value they created that continues to expand. The poor believe they have to work harder. The wealthy learn to think smarter. They invest their best energy not in more hours, but in better ideas. That's where the true leverage lies when your thinking earns for you long after your labor ends. One of the greatest truths I've learned in life, and I've watched it play out across continents, industries, and generations, is that your philosophy, not your circumstances, dictates your fortune. It's easy, dangerously easy, to believe that your background, your education, the economy, your parents, your setbacks, or your lack of connections are the reasons you can't succeed. But the wealthy, they know better. They've traded excuses for philosophy. You see, philosophy is simply how you choose to interpret life. It's the lens through which you see your challenges, your possibilities, your setbacks, and your potential. And I'll tell you this, a weak philosophy will bankrupt your future faster than a bad economy ever could. When I was young, I had every excuse lined up. I didn't have a prestigious education. I wasn't born into wealth. I didn't have connections. I thought success was reserved for the chosen few. But then I realized those limitations only existed in my mind. The wealthy, they think differently. Where others see problems, they see potential. Where others say, the economy's bad, they say, someone's still making money, why not me? Where others say, I come from nothing, they say, that means I have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Their circumstances don't control their direction, their philosophy does. Let me share a simple story. I once met two young men from the same struggling neighborhood. One believed his environment doomed him. He stayed broke, frustrated, stuck. The other adopted a different philosophy, that struggle was fuel, not failure. He educated himself, learned new skills, invested in relationships, and built a fortune. Same background, same challenges, but radically different thinking. That's the power of philosophy. The wealthy build a mindset that bends circumstances to their favor. They believe the world is full of hidden opportunities for those who are prepared. They teach themselves that setbacks are temporary, that skills can be learned, that wealth is not reserved, it's earned by those who choose to see life through the right lens. It's never your conditions that define you. It's your conclusions. Change your thinking, and you change your fortune. Wealth always begins with clarity, not confusion. If your goals are vague, your results will always reflect that same uncertainty. You know, most people walk through life hoping that somehow, someday, they'll stumble into success. They say things like, I want to be rich, or I want to be free, but when you ask them for the specifics, how much, by when, doing what, they draw blank. And that blank space, that's where frustration and stagnation live. The wealthy never operate in that fog. They bring precision to their ambitions. They don't wake up saying, I want more money. They say, by the 31st of December, my income will reach $150,000. My investments will generate $20,000 a year. I'll be debt-free in 18 months. Clarity sharpens focus, and focus fuels action. It's like sailing a ship. You don't drift aimlessly, hoping to arrive at some distant shore. You chart the coordinates. You mark the course. That's how fortunes are made. I remember early in my life, I didn't have that clarity. I worked hard, but I wasn't moving forward. I was busy, but not productive. It wasn't until I sat down with a mentor who asked me the most powerful question, quote, what exactly do you want? Write it down. That changed everything. My income targets became numbers. My deadlines became dates, and my dreams became blueprints. Suddenly, I wasn't hoping, I was building. You see, without clarity, the days pass, but the progress stalls. You drift from distraction to distraction, reacting to life instead of directing it. But when you declare your goals with specifics, income goals, investment milestones, freedom dates, you create a powerful force, momentum. Your brain starts working differently. You notice opportunities that align with your mission. You filter out distractions that don't serve the vision. And most importantly, you measure your progress, adjust your strategy, and keep moving forward. Confusion is the silent thief of success. But clarity is the architect of wealth. The wealthy don't gamble their future on vague hopes. They engineer it with crystal clear targets. If you want to join them, start by defining exactly where you're going, write it down, speak it out loud, see it every day, because vague goals create vague results, but clarity creates momentum that builds fortune. Excuses build poverty. Ownership builds wealth. I've seen it over and over again in my own life, in the people I've coached, and in the countless stories of those who never moved beyond average. You know, it's easy to find reasons why things aren't working. The economy's down, my boss doesn't see my potential, I didn't have the right upbringing. Inflation, politics, taxes, the list is endless. But here's the truth. As long as you let those excuses take root, your future stays trapped. The wealthy, they play a different game. They may face the same challenges, but they refuse to surrender control of their life to outside forces. They take ownership, full ownership of their time, of their habits, of their mindset. They understand that even when life is unfair, the only real leverage they have is the responsibility they take for their own progress. I remember when I was broke, financially, emotionally, directionless, I used to blame everything, my circumstances, my lack of connections, the market. It was always someone else's fault. But nothing changed. Not until I looked in the mirror and realized the person I'm blaming is the same person who has to fix this. That's when I stopped making excuses and started building my foundation. You see, poverty isn't just a bank account issue. It's a thinking issue. When you blame, you hand over your power. When you own your time, your choices, your learning, your discipline, even when the odds feel stacked against you, that's when the wealth building process begins. Ownership is uncomfortable. It means admitting your daily habits got you here. It means your missed opportunities, your wasted time, your distractions, they're yours to change. But that's the good news. If you caused it, you can correct it. The wealthy don't waste energy on blame. They channel their energy into ownership. They track their spending, master their skills, manage their emotions, invest their hours because they know no one's coming to save them. They are the rescue plan. So if you want to step out of the cycle of excuses and into the mindset that builds wealth, it starts now. It starts with ownership of your time, your habits, your future, because blaming circumstances keeps you broke. But taking ownership, that's the first deposit into your wealth account. Learning makes you richer than luck ever will. I want you to really let that sink in, because far too many people are sitting around hoping for that lucky break, that perfect opportunity, that moment when the stars align. But let me tell you, luck is the strategy of the broke. Hope without preparation is the language of poverty. Those who build real wealth, the ones whose bank accounts and influence grow year after year, they aren't sitting around waiting for luck, they're busy learning. You see, every wealthy person I've ever met, studied, or worked with had one thing in common. They outlearned their competition. While others were glued to television, scrolling distractions, or chasing short-term pleasure, they were feeding their minds. Books, mentors, courses, experiences they invested first in understanding, because they knew knowledge pays dividends far greater than chance ever will. Early in my life, I believed in luck too. I thought maybe, just maybe, I'd stumble into success. But what I stumbled into was frustration. Every door seemed locked. Every shortcut was an illusion. Until I changed my philosophy. I stopped chasing luck and started pursuing learning. That decision altered my trajectory forever. Learning makes you richer in ways money can't even measure at first. It sharpens your thinking, expands your awareness, reveals hidden opportunities, and protects you from costly mistakes. The world is full of traps for the unprepared, bad investments, poor partnerships, get-rich-quick schemes. But for the person committed to learning, those traps become obvious, and the pathways to wealth become clear. I remember reading a simple line once that changed my approach. Formal education will make you a living. Self-education will make you a fortune. That's not a theory, it's a reality. The wealthiest people I know never stopped learning. They studied people, they studied markets, they studied themselves, they mastered their craft, and eventually the opportunities they used to hope for, they started creating them. The greatest advantage you'll ever have isn't luck. It's the compound effect of what you know applied consistently. That's how fortunes are built. Not overnight, not by lottery tickets, but by stacking useful knowledge day after day until you're so prepared that when opportunity shows up, it feels like luck, but really it's learning paying off. Because learning makes you richer than luck ever will, and the best part, that's a wealth-building tool no one can take from you. The right habits compound faster than the right income. You know, a lot of people believe that the moment they earn more, everything will change. That somehow a bigger paycheck is the golden ticket to wealth, security, freedom. But I've watched it happen too many times. People get the raise, they get the bonus, they hit the big commission, and within months, the money is gone, spent, forgotten. Why? Because income without discipline is like pouring water into a bucket full of holes. But small, right habits, those are what really build wealth. I've always said success isn't built in giant leaps. It's crafted in quiet, consistent disciplines repeated over time. You track your expenses daily, not because it's exciting, but because awareness is the foundation of control. You read for 30 minutes a day, not because you'll suddenly be wealthy tomorrow, but because knowledge compounds like interest little by little, then all at once. You say no to impulse purchases, practice patience. Avoid the emotional spending, those small invisible wins. They multiply faster than any salary bump ever could. I remember early in my career, I watched colleagues chase higher income, but their lifestyles inflated just as quickly. More money meant more expenses, more liabilities, more stress, but no real wealth. Meanwhile, I focused on the small habits. I lived below my means, I studied every day, I tracked where every dollar went. At first it didn't seem glamorous, it wasn't flashy, but over time, those habits started to stack like bricks in a wall, solid, reliable, growing stronger year after year. Here's the truth, most won't tell you, income is temporary. Habits are permanent. A raise feels good today, but without the systems to manage it, it vanishes. But the habit of saving 10%, that becomes 20. The habit of reading daily, that transforms your mindset, your skills, your earning capacity. The habit of self-restraint, That prevents financial disaster when the unexpected happens. Wealthy people understand this. Habits compound faster than paychecks. That's why you can meet a millionaire with average income but extraordinary habits, and you can meet someone with a high income drowning in debt because they neglected the fundamentals. Money without habits is unstable. But habits, even with modest income, create stability, growth, and eventually independence. So remember, chase habits, not just income, because the right habits will compound faster, stronger, and longer than any raise ever will.